Awesome. Welcome to today's Institute for Disability Research Policy and Practices Time to Act Substance Use Echo. I'm Leo, the project assistant for Project Echo up at Utah State University. I'm so happy to be here with you guys today in this learning experience. If you could please, when you're joining, enter your name and contact information in the chat. That just helps us get to know each other and it helps us network with each other over this Substance Use Echo session. There we go. Just as a reminder, we are recording this echo session for educational and quality improvement purposes, so by participating in this session, you are consenting to being recorded. So if you don't wish to be recorded, you may disconnect from the session, but we really do thank you for being here and we do want you here. Your participation and insights are what makes these sessions really meaningful, and we really hope you'll stay and be part of the conversation and the learning. And also, Echo is an interactive and participatory community where our participants, stakeholders, community members, everyone's communicating and supporting each other, maybe sharing other resources that we may have known about throughout session. And participants are expected to be engaged in asking questions, whether it be through chat or if you raise your hand to ask the presenter. It's a great way to just get to know each other and to get some really great suggestions. And case narratives are also a really great way to get some answers to maybe a difficult case that you've been working on. And always remember that it doesn't have to relate or match the didactic presentation. If you'd like to set up a case presentation, you may email projectscope@usu.edu, and the Project Echo team would be happy to help you set up a case presentation for one of our sessions. Let's also to just remember to please protect individual privacy. So let's remember to avoid real names or identifying details when sharing examples. And if you're unsure about what you're going to share, you may feel free to check in with a hub member who will have an asterisk by their name. We're always happy to help, and this just keeps our space safe and respectful for everyone to be in. There are three key components to an echo session. Our first is the didactic speaker, who for today will be Trisha Reynolds, who's presenting on children of incarcerated parents. Our second component is the case presentation and all of those really great recommendations that we get from the breakout rooms. Natalie Allen is going to be presenting our case for today. She's actually one of our fellow Substance Use Echo Hub team members, and I'm really excited for her case. And that third component is that professional networking that we like to facilitate throughout this echo session, whether it be through the chat or through one of those breakout rooms. We always just like to share resources and ideas and just get to know each other. Also, this is just how to rename your profile. If you'd like to rename it to your first and last name, the state that you're in, the job title, and the organization that you're working for. If you want to, it's just on those three little dots and you click the rename option. And the raising hand function is now in reactions. It's just a good way to not interrupt the person speaking, or if you don't want to interrupt them, you can use this function, and it's pretty great. Just a quick reminder about Echo session etiquette. Let's remember to respect the presenter by either using chat or raising our hand when the presenter is speaking. So remember to keep questions brief and on topic, as we'd also love questions brief and on topic. And before you ask that question, we'd love if you introduced yourself and your organization before asking that question. Again, it just helps us stay connected. And last, we always encourage our participants to turn on your camera, as it really helps us connect over this substance use echo session. And how to get credit for attendance. So Tori will be dropping a survey link throughout today's session in today's chat. And by filling out that survey, you can earn a certificate of attendance. Many participants actually share these certificates with their employers or their supervisors as documentation of ongoing professional learning. And we also like to go over your feedback that you give us in that survey, as every response really helps us improve future echo sessions and to just create a great learning experience for our participants. And for Canvas, Canvas is where we store our additional resources, past echo sessions, and it's where you can access those case recommendations. So if you'd like an invite to the Canvas page, you may email projectscope@usu.edu, and we can get you set up on that page so you can access all of those really great resources. And just another plug for case studies. They're just, again, a really great way to receive applicable and valuable feedback on a difficult case you may have been working on. They also, again, don't need to match the didactic. So if you're interested in sharing a case with the Substance Use Echo team at one of these sessions, you may email projectscope@usu.edu. And lastly, you can follow us on social media. We have a Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn page. You can scan these QR codes and it'll take you right to those pages. And I just want to thank you guys for your participation, and I'll hand the time over to Trisha.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. I love meeting with this group. I was looking through my past presentations, and this looks like the fourth year that I've had the privilege of presenting to this ECHO group. So I'm grateful that you guys keep having me back because this is a really evolving work that I get the privilege of doing every day. And I love sharing updates and just progress that we've been able to make in this space of children of incarcerated parents. So thanks for coming and being interested in this. I'll keep my eye on the chat. So if you guys have questions, please feel free to ask them, and I would love to field your questions. Okay, let's make sure I can share my screen. We practiced, but sometimes. All right, are you guys able to see my slides okay?
Yes, we
Okay,
are.
perfect. I just got a message that says my internet connection is unstable, which is lovely. So if you have any issues hearing me, please let me know and I will relocate. Okay, so I work for the Utah Department of Corrections. We're going to talk a little bit today about what corrections is and what we do in corrections and how that is a little different than other criminal legal systems in the state. So we'll get into that in a bit here, but today I want to help you all understand the landscape of parental incarceration throughout Utah and how that's impacting our families in Utah, and then share a little bit more again about the agency I work for and how you and I can all partner more to support the families that we serve. I think you'll be surprised to hear how much crossover we likely have in our populations and our services. And then I have a lot of resources to share with you all that you can use in your everyday work. So just a little overview of what parental incarceration looks like. There are about 54% of people in state prisons across the United States are parents of minor children. It's a lot higher if you're a female than if you're a male. There's more moms incarcerated than dads. And in Utah, we actually think this number is a lot higher because we have pretty large average family sizes and we have pretty high birth rates in Utah. So we believe that close to 60 to 70% of our prison population are parents of children under 18. And of course, we see a lot of disproportionality for families experiencing poverty or families of color. These families are impacted by incarceration at much higher rates than the average population. So in Utah, it's really interesting. Most state prison systems have not historically collected any data about children or people even being parents, which is kind of shocking. But when I started with the Department of Corrections about 3.5 years ago, I called our data team to ask how many people in our prison were parents because I was going to apply for a grant for services for children. And they told me 10% or 15%. And I'm like, that's not right. Well, it's because we don't ask that and we don't document that in our computer system. And so we don't have that information available. So that's been one big problem I've been trying to solve since starting with the department is how to ask those questions and document that information so we can start to paint a picture and tell a story about how many children are impacted by parental incarceration. So we do have some data, and this is data from the health department when they do their annual BRFIS survey. I can't remember what BRFIS stands for. It's the most horrible acronym, but they survey people across Utah to understand different data points. And one of them is, were you ever impacted by parental incarceration when you were a child? And 1 in 12 Utahns say that they had a parent that was incarcerated. Is anybody shocked by that number? 1 in 12, that's like 2 to 3 in every elementary school class. Those kids have had incarcerated parents. And I love to show this bar chart on the right, which highlights the amount of children currently in foster care in the state of Utah is around 2,700, depending on the day. And we have 44,000 children currently impacted by parental incarceration. So this is a really hidden population. It's a problem that does not get nearly enough attention or awareness from the community or from lawmakers or funders. And so one of the most important roles I have found in my job is to do presentations like this and help providers and community members realize how this is impacting our families. Let's see, I have some questions popping up here. Oh, yeah. Oh, thanks. Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance System, BRFIS survey. Okay, yeah, Stephanie's surprised it's not higher than 1 in 12. And you know what? It might be, but we don't know. So one really exciting progress that we've made in the past few years is we passed legislation this past session requiring the prisons where I work and all the county jails, 29 county jails in Utah, to report to the legislature every year how many women have minor children. Now, I wish we were collecting that information on dads as well, but there's been a lot of focus on pregnant and postpartum women and mothers in the corrections systems. And so that's kind of the support that we have from the legislature right now, is to collect data on that small population. And I really hope that by doing that, we can start to show that there is a need and that we need to start collecting that data for dads as well. In the prison system, we are collecting that on all men and women. If we're going to collect it on women, why would we not just collect it on men as well? So that's underway. We now screen all of our new residents at intake, and we ask them to share information about how many kids they have and their kids' birthdays, not only so we can report back to the legislature how much of our population are parents, but also so we have a record of what age of children are impacted in our system, and we can start to build the correct services and supports based on the needs that we're identifying. So really exciting progress. I hope the jails choose to collect it on dads as well. But, we'll start with the moms and we will see what we get. And it'll be really interesting to get that data next year. My slides stopped changing. Okay. A lot of people ask why so many children are impacted by incarceration. Most people are pretty surprised by the number. And it's really because there's been a rise in female incarceration. So male incarceration has stayed pretty stable over the past decades in the United States, and maybe even decreased at times. But female incarceration continues to rise at really, really extreme rates. A lot of this is due to the way that states choose to prosecute drug crimes in particular. Tough on drugs, tough on crime, and that results in more incarceration, particularly for women. So across the United States, the US has seen a 600% increase in female incarceration since the 80s. But in Utah, we've seen triple that amount of an increase. So about 1,700% increase in female incarceration in Utah. And when you incarcerate a mom, you incarcerate a lot of children. And then also just to compound these effects, because we do have really high birth rates and the largest average family size in the nation, incarcerating one mom in Utah impacts more children than in other states. So raising the red flag, this is a big problem. We really need to start finding other ways to support families and holding people accountable without being so reliant on incarceration, and then finding ways to help support the children who are devastatingly impacted by this, and help increase their protective factors. 1,700% is horrendous, yes. Okay, this is a short video of some kids who've been impacted. I'm just sharing about their experiences. It's about 3 minutes. So this data people question, you said 1 in 12. 1 in 28 is right this exact moment. 1 in 12 is ever. So hopefully that makes sense.
The most challenging part of my mom being incarcerated is she's not there for big events, birthdays, graduations, stuff like that.
And hearing her cry and saying sorry that she was in there hurt the most, because I couldn't hug her or tell her everything was okay.
One day you're like playing catch with your dad, and you wake up from a bad dream and you go to your dad, and then the next day he's not there. And he's no longer picking you up from school, no longer kissing you goodnight and tucking you in. And then his absence just becomes a part of life.
but it's hard. Nobody really knows what you go through until you're in the shoes of that person.
A lot of people had, they felt sorry for me. So a lot of people treated me differently. I got special treatment, and then I also got treated, you know, kind of bad too because of the fact that she was in prison.
My sisters and I, we used to be really close, but I started defending my dad, and my sisters started defending my mom and trying to make me understand what he did was wrong and that he made a mistake and he's going to be paying for that. And so we disconnected and we kind of just live with each other instead of our being sisters.
My sister's taking it much worse. My dad has been in prison in and out almost his whole life since he was 17. So he was never there for my sister either. So my sister is taking it harder. But I think she's like more like covering it for me because she sees what I go through already. So she's more like, I don't want to talk about it. She's taking it much worse.
I talk to my family about it, my grandma the most, but I just felt like more independent on it and doing it on my own and not talking to her.
I wish that someone had told me that I wasn't alone, because feeling alone is probably the worst feeling in the world. And I wish someone would have just been there for me.
Don't lock yourself away. Just know that like you're going to be okay. There's always going to be there's someone there that's going through the same thing as you. So be open-minded about it. So don't, like I said, like don't put yourself in a box. Like you're going to be okay.
Trouble doesn't last always. The way I feel today might not be the way that you feel tomorrow about your parent or about your situation.
Don't get used to faking a smile and just allow others into your life and others to help you and support you.
Okay, let's see. Oh, I lost my presentation. Nope, we don't want to hear that again. Come on. Okay, that video always gives me chills. Those girls are just so resilient. Yeah, I think the silver lining of adversity is that these kids create some really great resiliency skills. And there's actually some amazing nonprofits and groups across the nation who work with kids that have been impacted by incarceration. There are a group of youth that have passed a Bill of Rights for incarcerated children of incarcerated parents at the national level with Congress. And so if you guys do have any youth kind of in that transition age that would be, you know, good spokespeople or need some support at the national level, let me know and I can connect you with some of those national groups. All right, so having an incarcerated parent is definitely an adverse childhood experience. These are the original 10 ACEs from the ACEs study, and having an incarcerated relatives here. Something that's really interesting if you delve into the ACEs data from Utah is that children who have had an incarcerated parent have the highest average ACE scores compared to kids with other ACEs. And that's because these ACEs cluster together in groups. So if your parent is incarcerated, I can pretty much guarantee you there was some amount of parental substance use involved. That's what almost everyone is in prison for. Maybe some parental mental illness, domestic violence, family separation often happens when one parent goes to prison, maybe potential for abuse of those children. And so these kids get some really high ACE scores. And what's challenging about that is we know that the higher your ACE score, the more potentially impactful that is on your body and your development and your future health status. And so it's just really an at-risk population that needs more attention, and we need to do a better job identifying this population and getting support for these kids to try to mitigate some of those potential impacts. So, all right, switching gears just to give you a brief overview of the carceral system. Jails and prisons are very different. I get a lot of questions from people asking me to help them with projects in the jails, and we're two very different systems, unfortunately. I think I said 29 jails earlier. Utah has 29 counties. Almost every single county has their own jail. 3 counties don't have a jail and they use their neighboring jail. But this is a challenging system because every county runs and operates their jail very differently. They have different leadership, management, policies, practices, laws impacting them, and services look very different from jail to jail. And then the prison system is run not at the county level like the jails, but at the state level. And so that's where I work. I work for the state government, and we have 2 prisons in Utah. One, our larger prison is in Salt Lake, just west of the airport. It used to be in Draper, but now that is a new development. And then our smaller prison is in Gunnison, Utah, about 2 hours south of Salt Lake. And briefly, how it works is like if you get arrested, you'll go to jail first. And if you receive a prison sentence, which is generally only going to be for people with felonies, not misdemeanors usually, and you receive a sentence that's longer than about a year, you'll be transferred to state custody and you'll serve your time in prison. In general, if you have a sentence less than a year, you'll just finish your sentence in jail. There's obviously exceptions to that, but that's the cleanest way I can describe it to you. We have relationships with the jails, obviously, since we receive their residents. We have a few other ways we interact with the jails, but overall, it's a very different system, which makes things challenging. A lot of people want to know, how do you find someone who's incarcerated? And since all the systems are different, there's unfortunately not a perfect centralized place to look this up. But sometimes you have to just be a bit of a detective. So if you think they're in the state prison, you can look on our website and search by name, and it'll tell you if they're in our custody and where they're housed and who their case manager is, and you can reach out. VineLink is a really great resource. This is a national initiative that was started many years ago to help victims stay informed about where their perpetrator may be housed or when they're getting released, so victims can be aware of location changes. So you can always check out VineLink, and sometimes the idea with VineLink is that all these different correctional facilities contribute data to the system, and then that you can find somebody no matter where they are. But not every jurisdiction contributes, and so it's not always a perfect system, but it is a good place to start. And then, I put in inmate locator links for some of the larger county jails, but again, we have 26, and so sometimes it's a bit of a challenge. If you think someone's incarcerated and you don't know where they're at, you kind of have to play detective. So I can always look people up and tell you too. So. All right, in corrections, we oversee a lot of different things. We have a massive, massive organization of thousands of employees doing thousands of things. So just the briefest overview is we operate our 2 correctional facilities that I mentioned. All of our women are housed at the Salt Lake facility. We do not house women in the Central Utah facility. And then we don't have enough beds for all 6,000 people that are currently in prison. And so we contract with many of the county jails to utilize extra bed space. So we have about 1,600 state inmates in county jail beds receiving state prison supervision and services. So it's kind of tricky just to understand people's custody status, but I can always help you sort through that if you are trying to find somebody and figure out who's in charge of them. We also run adult probation and parole. So just a brief overview, probation means you got in trouble and you have not gone to prison, but you're on a supervision or kind of you're at risk of going to prison if you're not successful on probation. The goal is, to use probation more than prison when possible and help people be successful on probation so they don't have to go to prison. Parole is when you've already been to prison and you get to leave prison early and finish the remainder of your prison sentence on supervision in the community. So they're similar. They're both supervision statuses, but parole looks a lot different because they are meeting prison supervision requirements, if that makes sense. And that impacts about 15,000 people in Utah. So many, many, many people are on adult probation and parole. And I think my best tip for any of you who are running multidisciplinary type teams is try to find out if a parent that you're working with is involved with APMP and include the APMP agent on your team whenever you can. Now, parents aren't always out there advertising they're on APMP because there's shame and stigma. But APMP is asking parents to do a lot of things. And so if you guys can collaborate and streamline services, it can really benefit parents. Their APMP agents are going to be more supportive of what they're doing if they know they're doing other family services with people who do the work you do, and vice versa. So try to team with APMP when you can. We also have Utah Correctional Industries, which are just different vocational trades and opportunities that we have inside the prisons. So we build every piece of furniture in every state building in Utah. If you are a state employee and you're sitting at a desk, that was built in the prison. Every license plate on your car was printed in our prison. Yeah, we have a lot of cool industries. If you ever get a chance to take a tour, we can show you some of the industrial spaces and some of the job skills people can learn. And then we have a huge department just of health services, all of our clinical services, medical, mental health. We have like a mini hospital inside the prison. It's really crazy if you ever get to see that. And then the division that I work for, the best division, reentry and rehabilitation, we get to do all the helping services. So substance use treatment, we do outpatient all the way up to residential level of care. We have like 9-month residential treatment that's comparable to any residential in the community. We do sex offense treatment. A very large percentage of our male incarcerated population has a sex offense. So we have sex offense treatment in both of our prisons and in many of our county jail contracted facilities. Education is a huge department. We can do literacy classes, high school diplomas, GEDs, associate's degrees. We launched a bachelor's degree program for the first time for our women a few years ago, and that group of women's about to graduate with their bachelor's degrees. Basically, any university in Utah has some amount of involvement in one of our prisons. Salt Lake Community College, Utah State, they're all offering something. Case management, that's kind of an obvious one. Everyone has a case manager that's helping them reduce their criminogenic needs that brought them to prison and prepare them for reentry. We have thousands and thousands of volunteers who come to the prison every year to teach anything and everything from every religion you can imagine to crochet, to financial literacy, to parenting classes, everything. We love volunteers. Intergenerational is my program area. That the title is because what we're trying to do is prevent that next generation of children being impacted from ever coming to prison. And then we have what's called community correction centers. You might know them as halfway houses. We have 6 of those, and those are like residential facilities where people who are leaving prison, but they may not have a place to go, they can go and get help reintegrating back into community, saving money, accessing treatment, finding housing, things like that. And then we have our treatment resource centers, which are outpatient centers, usually where adult probation and parole agents are located. So someone on parole can show up and check in with their agent and then access therapists, group treatment, drug testing, whatever they need, kind of all in one location. So there's a lot of moving parts going on in corrections. So we're just going to dig a little bit into my program area. This program area was just created 3 or 4 years ago. I'm the first person in the role of this program area. So it's been really, really fun and exciting to get to kind of build this programming from the ground up and help bring attention and awareness to people within corrections about the needs of children and how our system impacts children, because that's not really at the forefront of correctional professionals' minds. And this idea of supporting children is pretty new in the past 20 years across the nation. And so it's really exciting, evolving work, but it's also really challenging work because people are like, we don't deal with children in corrections. That's not our problem. And I'm like, it is. So there's a lot of education and awareness. And then there's just a lot of, well, I don't have a budget. So that's been fun, and just really relying on partners like you all and donors. I run a breastfeeding program completely on donations. So it's been fun, but we're making a lot of good progress. All right, so some of the projects we are working on, our DCFS collaboration program has been, I think, our biggest success. I used to work for DCFS, and I know that when I was a caseworker, I didn't know how to contact a parent in prison. So maybe I would send a letter, or maybe I wouldn't even do that because it's pretty tricky to navigate prison. And people in prison don't understand DCFS. They're like, what's foster care? Why do I have to, partner with this agency? So we now have really amazing collaboration with DCFS. We have a full-time staff. Her name's Kayla. She has a social service background as well. All she does is collaborate for parents in prison who have kids in foster care, and she connects them with DCFS. So we make sure they can go to all their family case planning meetings through virtual tablets. So Kayla runs like 10 virtual meetings every day to make sure parents can stay in touch with DCFS and their kids. We have partnered with our visiting department to create some special pathways and opportunities for DCFS caseworkers to bring kids in a little bit more trauma-informed space. And then, yeah, that's going great. We have impacted about 500 parents through that program. Our pregnant and postpartum support. So I think it was Stephanie that asked about this. Oh, it's not my Kayla. That's probably a different Kayla. Mine is Kayla Berthoud. She works for corrections. Are you talking about Kayla Jensen, maybe?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Kayla's
Clark.
also Kayla Jensen. Oh, Kyla Clark.
Yeah.
Oh, Kyla works for DCFS.
Yes.
Yes. My Kayla works for me.
Okay.
And she partners
Never,
with DCFS.
never mind.
You're good. No, I love that Kyla's coming. She's great. I think it was Stephanie asked about, yes, it was Stephanie, pregnant and postpartum women. And I don't think I put my slide in here, but I pulled it up to share with you. Across the nation, about 4% of women report that they're pregnant at the time of admission to state prison. What's really fun is when women find out they're pregnant when they get to prison, and I have to tell them they're pregnant. That's not fun. Usually they know, but sometimes they find out in prison, so that's rough. And about 2,000 babies are born to incarcerated women annually across the US. Again, this data is really sloppy because, for example, what I found out in Utah, when I called some county jails to ask them how many pregnant women were in their facilities, they told me they didn't know because they don't do pregnancy tests at intake. So there's potentially dozens of pregnant women sitting in county jails right now in Utah, and no one knows they're pregnant. So that was very concerning when we found that out. I assumed all the jails did pregnancy tests at intake because we do that in the prison. And so we were able to pass legislation, again on that, requiring county jails to do pregnancy tests at intake. So we passed that last year in 2025. And then, well, we messed up and we missed a piece of the law requiring the jails to report that information. So we realized, well, we told them to do it, but we don't know if they're doing it. So this past year, we added a little piece that says, and you have to report that data annually. So next year, hopefully, we'll get some data from the jails and we'll see how many pregnant women are in jails so we can start to build some better programs for them, because we can't really support them if we don't know that they exist. And they need prenatal care, and they need to not go through scanning machines, and they need to not be shackled and all these things. So yeah, every day I'm uncovering something new and atrocious that needs to be done in this space. But within the prison, we're always evolving and adding new supports and services for our pregnant moms. I think overall we're doing a pretty good job, but we have a lot of room to improve. So we did start a lactation program 2 or 3 years ago. It used to be that if you had a baby while you were incarcerated, you would return back to the prison from your hospital stay, and you'd be given an ACE bandage and some medication to dry up your milk and told to call medical if you get a clogged duct. And that was the extent of it. So now we give all of our moms a hospital grade, brand new double electric breast pump. We get those at a discounted rate from Amita, who supports our program. And we give them support from our nurse and a lactation consultant in the community who volunteers her time to oversee our breastfeeding program. And we've had, maybe 15 moms do our breastfeeding program. We allow them to pump for up to 1 year. We just had our first ever mom pump for a whole 12 months. It was so impressive. It's really, really hard to pump in prison because you don't have your baby there to tell your body to produce milk. And so a lot of moms will do it for like as many months as they can, but their milk will dry up, or honestly, it's depressing because you're like over here thinking about your baby every 2 hours and it's hard. So we give them as much support and education as we can, and we've sent thousands of bags of breast milk out the front gate, which is super cool. So families, the moms just choose who in their family they designate to pick up their milk, and the grandmas or the dads text me, and we put milk out front almost every day when we leave. So we love that program. We have opened a special housing area for our pregnant and postpartum moms in the prison, so they live all together if they want to. We don't require them to, in an 8-woman section. Most sections in our prison have 64 women in them. They're very loud, they're very chaotic. And so we give them this very small, quiet section. They have 1 bathroom for every 2 moms, which is super nice if you're throwing up or bleeding postpartum or pumping. And well, they don't pump in the bathroom, but they have more privacy. And then they have access to the freezer and the breastfeeding cleaning station, stuff like that. So that's been going pretty well. I have a new intern who's going to be running some maternal mental health groups in there just to give the moms a little bit more structured support with everything they're dealing with. And then we've added a doula program. So we have this amazing volunteer doula in the community who volunteers her time to meet with our moms and create birth plans for all of them before they give birth. And then she's with them at the hospital for labor and delivery support, because you cannot have your family with you when you're giving birth. So that's horrible. And the doula helps kind of mediate the trauma of that. Thanks, Stephanie. And then our parent sentencing alternative. This is my most important project. This will take me till I retire in 10 years. But what we're trying to do is get the community on board with not sending moms to prison is the short version. We would love to just not even have to run these programs in the prison because we don't want moms there. So we've started doing that we have an early release program, and we work with the parole board to try to early release every single mom that we can. They're pretty supportive of the program. There are some moms with longer sentences that they just don't feel like it's safe or appropriate to parole, which is the reality of incarceration. But a lot of our moms are there for pretty short sentences and drug-related crimes or things that can safely be managed in the community. And so we try to parole moms before they give birth whenever we can, so they're not separated from their babies at birth. And that works a lot of times. Last fiscal year, we diverted 14 moms early, and only 1 of them came back to prison. So we're seeing a lot of success with this program. And really the next step is, how do we just not bring them to prison in the first place? I don't want to have them there and work hard to get them out early. I just don't want them to come. But that involves partnering more with like the courts who are sentencing them, the probation officers who are violating them, the community agencies that need to support these families so they don't come our way. So we're really just trying to move everything upstream, but it's a heavy lift. So in the meantime, we're just going to keep trying to kick moms out early whenever we can. I could talk about that all day, but I need to move on to other areas. So parent education, when I started, we had 1 evidence-based parenting class only for men, none for women. So we worked on that. I think we're up to 7 evidence-based parenting curriculums now for all of our populations. We just finally launched a new parenting class for our men's maximum security facility, which we've never had parenting classes in max. So that's going well. And then people ask about visits. Can you visit in prison? Yes. We have children at the prison every single day to visit their parents. I do a lot of awareness with attorneys and judges to help them understand that prison visits are not traumatic. Well, they can be traumatic for kids, especially the first few times. It is what it is. But there's ways we can help support children, and the research definitely shows that contact with parents is better than cutting it off. So we do what we can to make visits as child-friendly as we can in a correctional facility. I have a lot to say about our visit department needing to do things better, but it's a balance of security and children's needs. So we do some special Kids Day events. I'm going to show you a video if we have time. We do these carnival things like twice a year, and they're special events where parents, they have to earn the privilege, but they get to like touch their kids the whole time, which is not normal for a prison visit. Normally you get a hug at the beginning and the end, and you don't get to like snuggle for the whole time because, well, people pass drugs to each other through their kids. So our people on their highest privilege levels will get the opportunity to hold their baby for the whole visit. We do family photos, we feed them, they get to just do crafts, and they're so fun. I'm going to skip some of this for the sake of time. We're starting a Girl Scout troop in partnership with the Girl Scouts of Utah. That will be a troop of girls with all incarcerated moms, and the girls will meet with the Girl Scouts on the outside to learn life skills and earn badges and go to camps and sell cookies. And then their moms will get support in the prison about how to mentor them and be troop leaders. And then we'll do joint meetings in the prison twice a month with the girls and the moms. So that's coming soon. We're working on a caregiver toolkit. Sophie, who's in this meeting, is actually helping me so much with this. We have kind of like a sloppy version of one, but we've seen other states put together these beautiful toolkits for caregivers. And so Sophie and her team have been working on beautifying our toolkit, and we're going to be putting that online soon so caregivers can access that more easily. So if anyone knows of services and resources, we'll just keep adding to it. Oh, yep. Sophie's talking more about our monthly work group that we do. We're working on the toolkit for the caregivers and also the jail education. So I mentioned here and there, like we've identified a lot of challenges the jails are having serving this population. And I don't blame them. They have like 2 pregnant people at a time. It's not their top priority, but we're trying to bring awareness to the needs of this population and be a resource to them about how they can better support moms. Okay, did I miss anything there? All right, we've already talked about, this is more for DCFS workers to educate them on different communication platforms that we have. And I kind of already told you guys about that. Oh, here's a photo from our lactation program. I really did find a mom who wrote that message to her baby on her bag of milk. That is devastating. Okay, this is our Kids Day video. We just did this event in June, so this one's hot off the press.
They're doing a special Kids Day event visit where we don't have to abide by normal security and can run around and play games with our kids for 3 hours.
This is our annual Kids Day event. We host this event twice a year. It's a special opportunity for children of incarcerated parents to visit with their moms or dads in a more natural setting.
It's a blessing, you know, because you get to see a child smile, and we don't get those on every normal visit, so it's definitely a blessing to have this.
Parents are able to have more consistent physical touch with their children, and so we have some younger babies and younger children here, and their parents are able to snuggle with them and hold them and cuddle them for the entire duration of the event.
Being able to hold my son and I just interact with my kids like more than I've been able to since I've been here. It's been fantastic. You know?
It makes me realize how important it is for me to be in their lives and not be in the situation that I'm in. It gives me a better drive or more motivation to make sure I don't end up in a situation like this again.
This is a great Father's Day present to me. I feel like I couldn't ask for nothing more.
All right, that one makes me tear up. That's my favorite day of my job. It takes like 6 months to plan, and then it's worth it though. Then this is just my last couple slides, and there are some really great resources for families that I have linked for you on the last slide. One of the resources is Sesame Street. They have a whole branch of Sesame Street that just specializes in helping kids in special populations. So they actually have this for military families, divorced families. There might be others on there, but if you have kids that are younger, they'll help these kids talk about these difficult things through the puppets. So here's a little short one.
Hey, Alex, maybe we can get our dads to make cars like that with us, huh?
Yeah! And then we can race cars together!
Oh, great idea!
I don't think so.
Oh, come on, it will be fun!
Yeah, just ask your daddy!
Well, he can't do it.
Well, why not?
He's not around right now.
Huh?
Well, where is he?
Somewhere else.
Oh, did he go on vacation?
Is he visiting someone?
Yeah, where'd he go?
Yeah, where?
Look, I don't want to talk about it. Okay?
Did we say something wrong?
I don't know.
He's upset about something. Come on.
Okay, Alex! Alex!
Alex! Alex!
Listen, Alex, whatever it is that's on your mind, you don't have to tell us. But we're your friends, and you can always talk to us if you want.
It's just all this talk about my dad and where he is got me really upset.
Oh, because your daddy's away? And you miss him?
Yeah, but because of where he is, too. My dad's in jail.
In jail? Why?
I don't like to talk about it. Most people don't understand.
Actually, I do understand what you're going through. When I was about your age, my dad was incarcerated too.
He was?
Wait, what's carcerated? And why was your dad in it?
Incarcerated is when someone breaks the law, a grown-up rule, and then they have to go to jail or prison.
Okay, so check those out. They have a lot more content. They have toolkits for caregivers. It's really helpful. And then my last slide is just some links. I hope these links work in the PDF slides that I sent you, Leo. If not, I can send you an email with the links to share with people. But Grand Families is one of the best resources for families on the outside who are caregivers of the children of the parents who are in prison. So like grandparents, aunts and uncles. I didn't mention this earlier, but if your dad is in prison, you most likely live with your mom. If your mom is in prison, you most likely do not live with your dad. You most likely live with a grandma, an aunt, a female caregiver, usually. And so that's an interesting dynamic, and there's a lot of differences in the outcomes for children who have incarcerated moms versus incarcerated dads. Kids with incarcerated moms tend to have more challenging outcomes because for whatever reason, being separated from your mom looks like it's having a bigger impact on kids, probably because they're not with a parent. So anyway, grandmas, aunts, uncles, family members should definitely reach out to Grand Families. They have like case management, legal support. They can help families learn how to access some financial resources that are available to kinship through the Department of Workforce Services. Grandparents do not want to be parents again. They're struggling financially. They're struggling with, family substance use, whatever. And so that's a really, really good resource. The Sesame Street videos, the tip sheet for caregivers is from a national organization that's just put together helpful guidance for caregivers on how to navigate prisons and jails. I mentioned earlier, a lot of caregivers think the better option is just to not have any contact with an incarcerated parent because it's scary and it's, this helps families understand the research about what is really generally most helpful for children and how to safely help them navigate these things. The printable resource for families is the one that I've been putting together over the years with resources as I learn about them, and the one that Sophie's team is helping us make look super professional. So use this one for now, and then just know that we'll be getting a better looking one out to everybody soon. And then if you like podcasts, check out Ear Hustle. It will teach you a lot about prison. It's made by incarcerated men at San Quentin State Prison. They record it right inside the prison, and it's beyond fascinating. You can learn the craziest things, and you can see if what you see on TV is true or false. There's a little bit of both. Okay, I said a lot of things. What questions do you guys have?
Thank you. I just want to thank you, Trisha, so much for presenting for this network. I know you've
No
done
problem.
it a couple of times, so I want to thank you. And just thank you for the work that you're doing. I know it's really hard sometimes to be in this line of work, especially when sometimes there's a lot of heavy stigma that surrounds children of incarcerated parents, which actually brings me to my question, would be like, what misconceptions about families experiencing parental incarceration should professionals like us on this call be aware of?
Oh, is that a question for me?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. Well, I don't know if it's a misconception, but just like I mentioned earlier, is that we don't necessarily ask because we don't know to ask. And so I think we're often missing that families are being impacted by this. And so just by simply being aware that incarceration has potentially impacted so many families, to make that part of your, screening questions. And so if they have been, you can be aware there's kind of an extra layer of trauma or family separation maybe to be addressing, or resources to connect families with. So, and I think the other just misconception is maybe people think everyone in prison is violent and they're going to be there for a long time. And the reality is 98% of people leave prison. We hardly have any people stay for life. That's what you see on TV, but that's not really what the prison population is. They're going to be your neighbors. So really just we need to do a better job investing in supporting people with reentry and rehabilitation, and, you know, finding jobs and housing, because they will return to the community. And how do we, you know, help them integrate and decrease those barriers that they have? So we have a lot of parenting curriculums, Stephanie. So Utah State Healthy Extensions is one of our best partners. They teach Inside Out Dad. That curriculum is only for men. It's for anyone with children up to age 24, or even people who are grandparents or future dads. So that one's pretty broad. We do one called Positive Discipline. That one's taught by a volunteer who is certified in that curriculum and wants to volunteer her time. So we do that alternating with our male and female populations. She's added like an advanced class for people who really like her class and want to dig in more to Adlerian principles. Our primary curriculum is Parenting Inside Out. That is the only evidence-based curriculum for justice-involved populations in the nation. It's undergone randomized controlled trials with really great outcomes related to recidivism and decreased substance use and all these things. So we offer that one in all of our facilities. I'm missing some. We're just bringing in Making Parenting a Pleasure in the next month or so, and that will be taught by the Family Haven. The Family Support Center in Orem has a federal prevention grant, and so they'll be teaching that as a prevention curriculum. Strengthening Families is another one. That's the one we just started in the men's maximum security. That's for like kids 8 to teenagers. I might be missing some, but yeah, we're always adding. We only bring evidence-based classes now. We had some made-up curriculums that are gone. So, Janelle, did you have a question?
Yes. So first off, Tricia, the amazing work you've done since you've taken this position in the last 3.5 years is just outstanding. And every time I hear it, I always think about how we as early intervention can help support the families or do more child find towards that. So 2 questions that I have for you. The first one, you mentioned asking people about the adult prevention and parole, or the APMP. So how would be an easy way to bring that up with a family member? Or
yeah, I think just don't beat around the bush or be embarrassed about it, right? Like, hey, one of our intake questions is, do you have any involvement with adult probation and parole? If so, we just want to make sure to include your agent as part of our team so we can let them know the amazing work you're doing with your kids and support you on your probation.
Okay.
Now, they might say no. They might not want you to talk to their agent because, well, if you make big mistakes on probation, you are facing prison. So it's scary. And so I think just helping people see, I want to include your agent as a way to support you and highlight the amazing job you're doing as a parent. And I want your agent to know you have a child that has special needs, or that you are spending a lot of time in the service with us. We want to highlight that so your agent's not requiring you to work and requiring you to do things that are not realistic because they don't understand the full. Like, agents don't know what early intervention is at all. If a parent showed up and they're like, well, I can't do that because I have early intervention for my kid, they're going to be like, no. So just kind of that cross communication to support parents from being overwhelmed.
Okay, that's a great point with that. Does the DCFS also help with that? Because some of the children that may have incarcerated parents have interactions with DCFS, and we have that nice collaboration with early intervention and DCFS. Is there?
It's really a tiny, tiny percentage of incarcerated parents that have DCFS involvement. Okay. You're not going to have a DCFS case just because you went to prison. That's not child abuse or neglect, right? You're only going to have DCFS if there was any sort of abuse or neglect. And even, let's say I'm a dad, I went to prison for physically abusing my child. If that child's safe with the mom, DCFS is not staying involved. They don't want to stay involved. So that dad's going to do his prison time and DCFS is out of the picture. So it's very, very tiny percentage, like probably 1% of our population has DCFS. And truthfully, we don't want government intervention with families when we can avoid it, right? Because that brings risk of separating families again. So whenever we can support these families through nonprofits, existing community resources without bringing DCFS to the table is preferable.
Great. Thank you. My last question was around your thing where you had mentioned that there's some studies around being separated from their mom is more, like, can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. I forgot to put this one slide in there, but there's some research relating to education and in particular college attendance. So I might get these numbers wrong, but they're around here. The average US population, like 40% of people graduate from college, okay? If your dad's been in prison, you have a 10% chance of graduating from college. And if your mom's been in prison, you have a 2% chance of graduating from college. So I think there's a lot of theories about those trajectories, but I really do think it goes back to the fact that if your dad's in prison, you likely live with your mom and you're getting that primary attachment, you're getting that support from your caregiver who birthed you. If your mom goes to prison, you're rarely with your dad. Like we just did these Kids Days events that I showed you. When we did the events for the dads, almost every kid that came with a mom. When we did the event for the women, nobody came with a dad. Maybe one came with a dad. Everybody else came with a 20-year-old sister, a grandma, an aunt. So it's really like female caregivers who are stepping up and carrying the burden of incarceration and the impacts on children. And so when you have these kids who are maybe with a grandma and then an aunt and they have more placement changes, this happens with DCFS too. The more placement changes you have, the worse your outcomes are. And so there's just a lot more risk factors. Yeah. Especially if you were born to an incarcerated mom and you're separated 3 days after birth. I mean, that's definitely impacting your attachment in a way that won't be impacted if you were born while your dad was in prison, right? So.
Yeah. And I think that goes to show how much you are advocating for that and why that becomes an important piece of our whole family dynamic, right? So thank you.
No problem. Stephanie? You might be muted. I'm not hearing you.
I was just kind of wondering, I have two dads that I serve as I'm a parent educator and two dads with mothers incarcerated. So I wonder if your numbers might be skewed a little bit because the fathers aren't taking the children with the mothers, or for visitation with moms by their own choices. And I suspect that's a little bit on their view on, I wouldn't have this kid if they were going to change their life. I don't see they're going to change their lives. You know, this is kind of the statements that I'm hearing repeatedly. So I wonder if dads aren't showing up with their children for other reasons. You know, I mean, yes, more often is it a female caretaker, but there is some dads out there that have their kids.
Yeah, there definitely are. It's a really interesting point you bring up. So like, we have visiting available for men and women. Our men's visiting slots get filled up like almost the second we post them online. And it's because they're getting so many visitors. Their wives are coming, their moms are coming, their sisters are coming. The women, I can barely get people to come to the Kids Day events for the women. And this is just Trisha speaking, this is not research. But when I talk to these caregivers, I feel like people hold women to a higher standard. And they tend to be angrier and less supportive and more willing to cut their female people off. So they'll be like, I'm tired of my daughter's substance use. I refuse to enable her behavior. I'm not going to bring her kids to see her because they're burned out. You know, they've been dealing with this addiction is often what it is for years. I don't see the same thing with the dads. I'll often hear the wives and the girlfriends willing to bring the kids and be like more forgiving. I don't know. Maybe that's just a stereotype. But it is definitely facts that our women have less visitors than our men. So whatever leads to that, I'm sure a lot of things. And it's sad.
Hey, thank you so much for answering those questions. I'm going to give it a few more seconds just to leave the floor open. If you want to pop your question in chat, if you have one, or if you wanted to raise your hand.
Oh, perfect. Somebody wants to join our work group, Sophie. That's awesome. Our work group's amazing. We have people with lived experience who've given birth while incarcerated. We have a medical director of a jail who helps us understand like medical services for women. So it's a really, really cool space to work more on these issues if you would like to.
I'm not seeing any other questions, but that means I'll hand the time over to Natalie Allen, who's our case presenter for today. Natalie, if you could come off mute so I could. Where are you?
Great.
Oh, I see
Trisha,
you.
thank you so much for your presentation. I work with Trisha and
Natalie's been part of all these legislative changes.
It's a subject near and dear to my heart. And Janelle, just to answer your question, like, how do you approach? Because I have lived experience. My son spent 4 years in prison, and he had a 2-month-old baby when he went to prison. And Janelle, trust me, the families just want you to ask. You know, most of them, they just want to ask. It's just like, they don't want it to be hard. They just want people to ask and then, offer support. Like, anyway, that's how our family is. Like, we talk about it. We're open about it. We're not hiding behind a wall. So anyway, just ask the question. All right, Leo, are you going to do my slides or am I doing the slides?
I can pull them up for you. Did you want me to present them or would you rather present them? Because I feel like I'd rather you
have them
present
pull them
them.
up. Well, yeah, if you have them, pull them up because then I won't screw anything up.
All right. Are you guys seeing the right screen?
Yep.
Or no? Awesome. Okay. Sorry. Let me go to that one. Okay.
Okay, so let me explain a little bit who I am. I am a nurse practitioner. I'm dual certified as a family and pediatric nurse practitioner. And the reason why I chose that path is because I really want to help kiddos with developmental delays throughout their life. So that's kind of my trajectory. I care for patients mostly via telehealth in rural areas throughout the state of Utah. I am able to see some kiddos in person because I do a bit of traveling, but this is a case that I've really been struggling with. So I'm hoping that you guys can help me. Go ahead, Leo. So this is a 3.5-year-old male, full term, no complication, but there was some drug use on mom's part during the first trimester. There is a younger sister, so parents are separated, so the custody agreement is not finalized because there is a DCFS case open with this family. So when he is living with mom, he's living with mom and there's a younger sister. But when he's with dad, he lives at the grandparents' house with the dad and the dad's girlfriend. And there is also another child that's not this male's biological sibling. He did have some early intervention and he got speech and occupational therapy when he was in early intervention. The parents have pretty much been separated his whole life, so has always kind of had this back and forth arrangement. He does go to daycare 5 days a week and is in therapy for 1 hour every 2 weeks, which is court ordered due to the DCFS case. According to mom, he was always a poor sleeper. And her main concern of reaching out to me was that this will be his second daycare that he is at risk of being suspended from. And the biggest problem is his extremely offensive language. And I will spare you all of what it actually is because it is extremely offensive language. And then he will get aggressive and violent, yell, spit, get in teachers' faces. He will play with other kids when he's able to calm at daycare, but he really does often prefer to play alone. But he kind of always has to be in charge, or else then he gets upset and he'll have these meltdowns. Daycares, they tried a sticker program focusing on his positive behavior. Mom said it worked really well for about 1 week, and then he just didn't care. Like, he earned his stickers and he was really excited for 1 week, and she said it was almost like a switch turned off. The next week, he could have cared less. All the other kids got their stickers and their rewards, and he didn't seem affected. He didn't seem to care. I had the opportunity to meet with Mom, and I really wanted to be able to meet with the mom and the dad so that we could work out some agreed upon consistency for behavior techniques and discipline. The mom was able to convince the dad to attend a meeting with me, and this was done via telehealth. When the dad met with me and the mother, Dad was very angry. He claimed that he uses time out at home and that he doesn't have any problems with the child at his house. And the other problem is that Mom does want this child tested for autism, but Mom and Dad both share medical and educational rights, and they have to agree on testing. So we can't just go forward if one parent won't agree to it. So at this point, Dad will not agree to even official occupational therapy appointments anymore because he says there's nothing wrong with the child. Mom has tried things like taking away privileges and reward boards, but it doesn't work. I do remember. Yes, sorry. He was tested for autism, but didn't receive a diagnosis. I read the report, and I don't want to be judgmental or anything, but it was a really bad evaluation. Like, I was confused. I've read a lot of evaluations, and I was honestly quite confused by the evaluation. So anyway, there's that. Mom is having a lot of problems at home. Go ahead, Leo. So some of these goals are his behaviors at daycare and his behaviors at home, and then these barriers of completely conflicting views between Mom and Dad. And it was very difficult for me to get what I felt like was an honest discussion going with Dad, because when he arrived to our appointment, he was just so angry that Mom is just making this all up and just wants something to be wrong with their child. Go ahead, Leo. He does have these feeding problems. He really only wants to eat mini muffins and Gatorade. It seems like he is a little bit more open to trying a couple other things at daycare, but he's also very particular about what he'll eat when he's at daycare. Dad said that he eats whatever he wants him to eat at home and that he doesn't have any problems getting him to eat at home. Mom still is believing that her child has autism. That's what she is thinking. And Dad actually was really angry and said that there's no problems at daycare and that Mom was lying. But before our meeting, Mom had actually submitted a letter from the daycare because he is at risk of being expelled. And so I did actually have a letter from the daycare explaining the behaviors that were happening there. So I did verify that at daycare, he is going to lose his spot without some help. Go ahead, Leo. So these are some things that I'm hoping to get some information from. I've been doing child development for a long, long time. Used to do early intervention. I love working with families. I really am not sure what or if I should continue to try to obtain information from Dad or how you guys see how I would verify any of this, and how might this high conflict divorce be really contributing to, I left a name in there. No, Ethan was a made up name. I remember, I made that up. Ethan's behavior. So why would these behaviors look so different across settings, and what could be the possible explanations for the father to report that there's no problems? And do you have any ideas for how we can offer some interventions to prevent preschool expulsion? Did I show the letter from the daycare to Dad? No, I offered to show it to him, and he did not want to see it. So those are my questions. Does anybody have or want any additional information? I did take some notes because I actually saw them one more time since I submitted this case study, but I don't know what other information that you might like to hear.
Give it just a few more seconds and then we can open up those breakout rooms. But that was a really good overview of the case, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, no, no one's coming in with questions, so you did a good job going over it. And then I guess we'll open
Okay,
up those
so,
breakout rooms. Oh, sorry.
I felt really bad when I met with this mom because I think I put a lot of pressure on her talking about how we needed to get some consistency across environments. So I feel like I really put some pressure on mom, and then she did everything she could to get dad to come there, only for us to realize that we're not going to get that. So that was as a provider, I felt like a real place that I'm glad I didn't ruin the trust with the mom and that she gave me another chance, because I almost feel like I put too much pressure on it, and I just don't see us getting consistency across environments. That's just the reality. Anyway, there you go. That's my piece.
Thank you. And then we're ready for those breakout rooms. Awesome. Okay. I don't know if we should. I think we still have a few maybe quick minutes to go over what we discussed. I think we got the first two questions, so just additional information that we might obtain, and then how might a high conflict divorce contribute to Ethan's behavior. I think something really big that may have stuck out with the first question is I think the group was wondering how involved are maybe the grandparents in the child's life, and also how involved maybe is the dad's girlfriend in the child's life as well. Just we want to kind of know the whole family picture and the whole family unit before maybe doing those specified applications or specified strategies that we can apply to this child. And then with the high conflict divorce, we might just be suspecting that it's creating a chaotic environment, which may be leading to some of those behaviors that are occurring at daycare. So that was just a little quick overview of what we went, but I think our conversation went really well. I don't know who the second group was, or did we have 2 or 3 groups? 3, awesome. So then I'll have the second group go. I don't know who was in that one.
I don't know.
can share. Oh, sorry, Janelle.
I'll go ahead and go. So two of the things that I really loved that our group talked about, and we had why might the behaviors be different across settings, and what are possible explanations of the father's report. The first one I loved that our group brought up is that, we all act differently for different people. And so are we acting different for mom, then we're acting different for dad. And the other thing around the behavior is is daycare, when he has those behaviors, are they calling someone to pick him up, and he's then having those behaviors at daycare because he wants to go home? And so what is happening for those reasons? So those were a few of our discussions.
Awesome. Thank you, Janelle. It sounds like you guys had a good conversation. And I'll have that third group go. I think maybe was Natalie in that group?
Natalie was in this group. We talked about a couple of the main ideas was just instead of utilizing time out, make sure that you're doing time in. Don't ever leave him to just sit in a chair in a corner by himself. Don't put him in his room where he feels like he is being abandoned, especially where mom is concerned. Maybe he already feels a disconnect from her in some way. So time in would be vital for her so that he knows that she's always going to be there. The other thing that we talked about is making sure that mom stays safe during those difficult times when he's throwing his fits. So I talked about how with my son, I actually turned the doorknob around so that I could lock the door. And I would keep him in his room, but I would stand by that door. And I would try to talk him down from his temper. So I'd say, JP, I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. I love you. And if you can calm down, the door opens and we can talk, and every time he'd say he was calm, you have to unlock that door. You have to go in, you have to talk to him, even if he starts throwing the fit again. And then you back up, lock the door again, and stay by that door. So just some quick ideas of what we talked about that, hopefully they can put into action.
Hey, thank you so much for those ideas. Those are really great. Thank you for sharing that example. I'll just go really quickly to end this. Our next session is going to happen on August 12th. It'll be a walk through the system with Kayla or Kyla Clark. It might be Kayla Clark, but I don't know. And it'll happen at the same time over Zoom. So thank you guys so much. If you still haven't yet, make sure you have taken the survey for the certificate of attendance. And also, if you want to view additional resources, past recordings, and presenter slides, case recommendations, you can send an email to projectscope@usu.edu for an invite to the Canvas page. So thank you guys.